My name is Heine, I'm a consultant psychiatrist, and I'm talking about borderline personality disorder in our series Mental Health Disorders Explained. We recently had a video on what's a personality disorder. A personality disorder is usually a change or a long-term stabilized personality which causes problems to oneself or others. There are about 9 personality disorders, and it depends on the classification systems how many there are. Usually one has to say that personality is something which is more in the dimensional space, so something changes, but there are no different categories that something from one thing to another, from one day to another, or from one symptom to another causes a disorder or not. Usually it's a fluid change. Right. So in this respect, we're talking about borderline personality disorder, and the signs and symptoms are that there's instability of emotions and emotional stability. The emotional stability is less than in other people, and it can cause two problems. And the signs are that people avoid perceived or real abandonment, and so they try to have relationships, and sometimes they can fall in love within a day, and they can fall out of love within the next day. So very often very intensive, very short-term relationships, and these relationships can be very intense with the family, with friends or loved ones, and they can change quite quickly. Usually there is a bit of a distorted image of self and others. There is no stability in this seeing themselves, and this sense of self can change quite rapidly. This leads then to impulsive and sometimes dangerous behavior, such as spending, very unsafe sex, substance misuse, extremely reckless driving or binge eating. And sometimes of these behaviors are related with elevated mood or energy, but some can also be associated with low mood. If in this case the mood disorder is the more major thing, then this behavior would be seen as part of the mood disorder. So that's a bit of the problem of dividing mental health problems, because very often they just overlap and sometimes they're very linked to each other. One thing which brings people into hospital is the self-harming behavior. People might cut their arms. They might find relief when cutting. That sometimes some people find the relief when they cut themselves to get their emotions stable. That means the pain, which is more or less when people cut themselves, leads to be an anchor in the emotional feeling. There's lots of people who have tried suicides or made suicide attempts, and sometimes they had horrendous suicide attempts, and sometimes it leads to a time of stability after that when people are in hospital and get some support, but sometimes it's not really a major change. People go back to the suicide attempt. Sometimes these suicide attempts are also a cry for help towards others. There's this chronic feeling of emptiness, sometimes inappropriate, very intensive anger, and completely flipping, getting out of control, and later not even understanding their own behavior. There's feelings of dissociation, which means people don't feel like being in the real world. They have this out of body experience, or they feel that things feel unreal. That doesn't help if people are drinking on top of that, but that's an option, and it makes it worse. Not everybody with borderline personality disorder, which is also called emotionally unstable personality disorder, has the same symptoms. Sometimes the symptoms can get better, they can get worse. Usually when people get older, luckily things usually get better, but sometimes people have already destroyed many relationships with others and might be isolated. Many people might die of suicide, but this is usually when the self-harm and the suicide attempts get more and more serious. Right, if you need help, certainly there are different helplines. I would go to the GP or psychiatrist, and if it's urgent, there plenty of countries have emergency call lines, and if there's nothing helps, people end up in the hospital, which nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it's a start of a travel to getting help and getting better. I hope this was interesting enough that you can come back and see other videos on mental health problems and even subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day and all the best for you. Thank you.